Over the past year, I've done a lot of YouTube broadcasts with Christchurch South Yarra, and it's very strange singing out to an empty church with no feedback.
I always personally think if I don't get any clap, I always wonder if everyone is still there. I'm Ria Andriani, writer and musician from Sydney. In this series, I'm going to talk to musicians with disability about how they are changing perception through their involvement. Jordie Howell has been singing since she was 10. She has always wanted to sing in opera. However, she finds the opera industry not accessible because there are many more physical demands, such as using body language and moving on stage. It's not enough for her to sing the right notes expressively. Jordie, so can you tell everyone what can you see and how has your blindness impact on your life?
I have a condition called retinopathy of prematurity, which means that I was born far too early and the oxygen levels that I was given were too high, so they scarred the optic nerve and the retina. I had light perception up to about the age of 20, and then that kind of faded off. So really, vision for me hasn't been a thing at all. Like, I used to be able to see the contrast of pavements and grass so that I could walk along and see where I was. But in terms of singing or anything like that, it didn't help me at all. So I was always functionally a totally blind person.
I know how that feels because vision is one of those things I don't really think about. Like, I have congenital glaucoma, so I can't see since I was really little, something like 5 or something like that. For me, it's a lot easier to find something with my hand or just check out something with my foot. And yeah, like, vision is just something extra rather than integral for me.
And it was probably quicker.
When did you start to realize singing all the right notes as beautifully as you can express isn't enough?
Well, really it was after I left university, because at uni I could sing as a soloist and sing in choirs and as a recitalist, and it was sort of enough then. But when I started auditioning for opera companies, I realised that the feedback I was getting was very similar, and that is, you sing very musically, you sing in tune, but we're concerned about your mobility on the stage. And I thought, this is interesting. How do I overcome this? Things like knowing what other artists are wearing in terms of their dress, in terms of makeup and hairstyle, and all those things I had to be told about. And so I felt that it was very much more than just singing the right notes and pronouncing the right words in whatever language you were singing.
Yeah, that is true, isn't it? If we don't know what other people are wearing, it's not something that we really think about.
No, and it's something that I feel is learned. I've learnt what colours suit me, what lipsticks suit me. It's all a learning experience, and I think it's much easier for a sighted person who just sees what the norms are. We almost have to be told what the norms are so we can fit into them a bit better.
That's not how other people who are blind think, really. It's not really that high on their priority list. How did you learn how to incorporate body language into your singing?
I can remember one masterclass that I was doing with Richard Gill, actually, and his advice to me when I asked him what I could do differently to increase the engagement of my face and my performance was to divide the audience up into 4 quarters and direct a phrase or two to the left, to the centre, to the right, so that I wasn't stagnant or sort of too still and statuesque, you know. Gentle, graceful and simple movements was the key for me in that regard, rather than pasting a grin onto my face to be smiley and happy. And it was quite a difficult thing to get used to, looking not too serious but not too smiley either. So yeah, trying to find that happy medium. I've worked with a number of coaches in order to do that. I think the most important thing was to keep your voice or keep the intent of the body language with whatever your song is about. And so hoping that you can use your voice in order to find the body language so that it comes from you. As a blind person, that's really hard. And again, it's something I've had to learn, and I'm still learning. I'm definitely not finished learning yet.
Wow, that's interesting, especially the dividing of the audience into 4 quarters. Do you divide the room into 4 grids?
Yeah.
To direct your attention?
Definitely. Yeah, it's all in my head, and I'm hoping that who knows whether I'm directing my eyes to people on the left-hand side or whether it's a left wall. But I do try and hear where the audience is. You can hear intakes of breath, you can hear chairs moving, you can hear coughs, you can hopefully hear applause at some stage. So to give you a bit of an idea of the audience and where to direct your voice, is kind of listening to what's around you and almost honing that sense as if it were vision, you know?
Yeah, I always personally think if I don't get any clap, I always wonder if everyone is still there or have they left their seats, or it's just if I don't get any responses, I just don't know what's going on.
Yes, over the past year I've done a lot of YouTube broadcasts with Christchurch South Yarra, and it's very strange singing out to an empty church with no feedback or coughs or clinks of jewellery or anything that you can usually hear in a congregation.
What do you think could the music industry, especially the opera industry, could do to make it more accessible for people who are blind?
I think to communicate is first and foremost. I think it's very easy to be overlooked because it's easier to assign a role to a sighted person who can just pick up the gestures quickly. And so investing time and perhaps also the ownership is not only on the conductor, the ownership of that is on the person who is blind, to find ways of learning about drama, learning about movement in dance or in stagecraft, so that you have those tools when you walk into an opera audition.
What are your hopes for the future?
That the opera industry or the music industry can become more inclusive. Perhaps if there's a blind character or a singer in an opera, they choose someone who is blind rather than someone learning to be blind. I always would have loved to have played Mimi in La Boheme because I would have felt like she was unwell, she had tuberculosis, I could have done that, I wouldn't have required a lot of movement, you know, so finding roles that are appropriate so that more people can be appreciated for the gifts that they have, despite vision impairment or whatever disability it is. Because I think there are a lot of voices out there that need to be heard, and I would love for that to happen in the future. If we could just devote a bit more time, a bit more communication, a bit more involvement from the mainstream community and from the disability community as well.